Ryan, this Friday, one of our favorite directors,
Yes.
Guillermo del Toro, is back with a film that it's not as Guillermo del Toro to me as a lot of other Guillermo del Toros. It's got a great Guillermo name.
Sure.
Nightmare Alley. It's a great Guillermo del Toro name. And I don't want people to think that I'm going to trash the movie. It just feels a little different from his other stuff to me.
It is, and what he's called it, and I've heard, he basically pitched this saying, there are no monsters in this movie except for the people.
Right.
So
and people are always the worst monsters.
So yeah, there's not necessarily the guy in the suit or the heavy fantasy aspect that tends to be in a lot of his films, but I do think a lot of what is in the film still feels very Guillermo del Toro. The kind of flashes of intense violence, the carnival aspect of it, there's that magic element, be it fake or real, that's kind of in there. So
I think it's more the lack of the overt fantasy nature of it is where.
And
and that's why that's how it doesn't feel Guillermo to me.
Yeah.
That being said, it feels like a noir movie when you watch it.
Yeah, and I think what's unusual about that is it is shot in color.
Yeah.
So
after all the black and white films we've had, it's a nice change of
pace. Yeah. So it's for me, noir is it's the subject, but it's also the lighting. Mm-hmm. And I think even he could have done it in black and white, but I'm very happy that he didn't, because it's actually a really, really pretty film to look at when it's not being really, really ugly.
And I was going to say it is a pretty film to look at. A lot of it is just really, the sets are gorgeous, the costuming is great. Even like some the shots of his skies are always great.
Yeah.
I think something would have been lost if it had been black and white. You'd have lost an aspect of that, and the difference in tone between, in visual tone between the circus and the upscale clubs later.
Sure. Yeah.
It is a difference, and I think a lot of that might have been lost because you would have just had a lot of bright whites like they had in the old black and white films when you were at a fancy party. There's a lot of light where it's not necessarily color. So there are a lot of things that color adds, but it still maintains kind of a noir narrative tone.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Bradley Cooper is our lead here. And he plays a guy named Stan. Stan has, I'm going to say Stan has daddy issues.
A few.
That's a theme that runs through the film. His daddy issues. And his romantic interest is played by Rooney Mara, who plays Electra, the electrified girl in the carnival. User of the Tesla coil, which is great. Kate Blanchett, Toni Collette, Ron Perlman, Willem Dafoe, Richard Jenkins, David Strathairn. Yeah. That's a hell of a cast.
It's a great cast.
I will say this, I wrote it in the write-up that I have for this, the always criminally underutilized David Strathairn. I love watching David Strathairn. I don't know why.
I always have. You've got Clifton Collins Jr., who's actually might be up for an Academy Award for a different film, for Jockey this year. So yeah, I mean, it's just like, and a lot of these people are playing not necessarily small roles, but supporting little bits and things here and there. So I mean, I think there's kind of this universal thing that a lot of us, if Guillermo called, you just say yes.
Right. Yeah, I kind of, so they're not small parts in a Guillermo film. I don't think there are small parts. There's like color parts.
Yes.
Where your role adds color to what he's painting on screen. And I think that's a difference. You're not playing bellboy number 2.
No, you're playing. Ron Perlman's strongman is an important character.
Right.
Even though he's maybe only in what 10% of the film, maybe.
If it's like 6 minutes of film time. I mean, it's something ridiculous in a 2.5 hour film.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a huge screen time.
No, and then some other characters obviously have a lot more screen time than that, but it's an ensemble film, absolutely. Although it's focused primarily on Bradley Cooper's character, who the pulpy aspect of noir is interesting in that in this film more than any other, the hero isn't necessarily who we think it is, or isn't as clean and savory. In fact, the hero might not be in this film.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with Guillermo calls them the others, the outsiders, the unusual, off the beaten path sort of thing. And in a way, the carnival. There's a romanticism about it, but also it's a very ugly thing as well. And I think Guillermo captures the whole carny lifestyle pretty vividly in this, for both the good and the bad sides of it. So
and that's like the opening. I called it like the opening third.
Sure. Yeah.
Of the film. And you can share, and don't forget out there listening that we love Guillermo, but I charitably call the first third of this film deliberate, but it is really kind of slow. But it's Guillermo, and he's just painting such a great picture with what's up there that but sometimes some of his moves are a little long. His camera moves are a little long, and so it's not a bad slow, but if you were gonna trim this film, you could trim that first third. But over the rest of it,
I probably wouldn't though.
Even at 2.5 hours, if I asked you to take 10 minutes out?
No.
Fair enough. But that's like the longest. It feels like the longest segment of the film.
I might take about 3 seconds out of the bathtub scene.
Maybe.
Anyway.
Yeah. Right.
Sorry.
Yeah,
that's
there's that.
Anyway. That's sort of a joke and sort of not a joke. Anyway. Yeah. I mean, sure. But he's atmospheric, and he always has been, and I like that. But yeah, like I think here's the thing. I think the film is actually well paced. There are aspects that maybe go on a little longer than some might like, right. But I think there's something always happening.
Yeah.
There's a purpose behind everything that we're seeing, and every once in a while we're moving along and then we hit a bump. That's a big bump. And
it is a big bump.
And there's some great dialogue in this film too.
Let's talk about this. So Stan doesn't run away to the circus or the carnival. He kind of ends up there.
Yeah.
But then he meets David Strathairn's character, who is married to Toni Collette's character, and she plays a medium in the carnival, based on a system that they developed together when he was doing a medium act, which he no longer does for reasons that a lot of the great dialogue in the film actually explain. Yeah. Where he's talking to Bradley Cooper, who's trying to learn from him. That is actually some of the best stuff, because that's where his daddy issues raise their ugly head again.
Yes.
And there's other complicating factors in there as well, but that's a big one. He loves Pete, David Strathairn's
Yeah.
character, Pete, he really does like him.
Yeah,
But,
he's just got a messed up sense of things.
right. So Pete dies, and Stan leaves the carnival with that mentalist system, an act that suits his natural character and abilities, as it turns out. And he takes Rooney Mara's Molly, Electra, the electrical girl, as his assistant. And they go, and he becomes rather famous rather quickly doing this act. And he's approached by certain people to do things that he was warned not to attempt as a mentalist. The spook show. Don't do a spook show because it can never end well.
And what they mean by that is don't try to connect people with their dead relatives.
Right, because it never ends well.
Yeah.
And of course, bad things can happen, but the money's really good for this one-off kind of thing, which then leads to a larger thing, which at the beginning is going to go terribly wrong.
Yeah.
But
absolutely,
it's like watching a slow motion train wreck that takes place over the course of a couple weeks.
And everybody knows it's going to go. There's no illusion. Everyone knows it's going to go wrong.
Even Stan knows that eventually it ends.
Yes.
He's just trying to position himself to not be there when it does.
Correct.
I
guess some of it too is a false sense of self, in that he seems to think, well, I can pull this off.
Right. I use this phrase later to talk about the end of the film, but it is his own perceived sense of superiority. He does believe that he's better, or that he can do it better than anyone else, and that he can make it work. And that can work for a while. I mean, confidence is a wonderful tool. But taken too far, confidence becomes hubris. Yeah. And he starts to believe that he can do no wrong.
Well, and that's all. That is the main warning of the film too, is that when the magician believes his tricks,
yes,
he needs to, it's time to move on.
Yeah, and Pete learned that the hard way.
Yeah,
and hit the bottle. And yeah. So I mean that's a huge lesson in this. So the middle portion of this is Stan becoming famous, just as like a touring mentalist, playing very nice clubs, not freaking dirt theaters. And then he gets sucked into this upper class spook show kind of thing. And then that's where he has to deal with Cate Blanchett's lawyer, or a psychiatrist.
Yes. Who identifies with him to a certain extent, in that, are they both just mentalists who are, is there science to what they're doing, or is there, are they
running the same con from two different angles?
Yes. Is one doing it under the guise of being a mental doctor, and the other under the guise of a seer, so. Yeah.
And so they deal. And of course, that relationship, two likes in a situation like that never ends well.
No, two people perfect for each other means that something's wrong.
That is it. Yeah. It's an imperfect match. It's something that never works. So that leads us, after you watch that segment play out, to its fairly inevitable conclusion. That's a great conclusion. Don't get me wrong, but
there's just some delicious line deliveries and stuff towards just some classic stuff.
Oh yeah.
Kate Blanchett has at least one particular line that is delivered. I mean, it's really simple, but it's delivered so well, and has so much subtext. And it's
All of her lines
yeah,
do. She's a
well,
psychiatrist. They all have
well,
subtext.
yes, but I mean, just nails it, and there's some dynamic chemistry going on in this film. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to kind of accidentally crash the world premiere.
Nice.
In
Did
that,
you accidentally crash it?
well, I didn't realize it was the world premiere.
Oh,
So
but
I
you
was
were
going to be
invited.
well, yes, but I was going to be in New York and miss the screening here in Salt Lake City. So I reached out to Searchlight and said, I noticed that there's a screening in New York. Can I go to it? Having no clue that it was the world premiere. Anyway,
Nice.
so yeah, but most of the cast was there, and a few of the things that they wanted to point out is, you know, obviously in a lot of old noir films, the women get the short end of the stick. Well, that's not necessarily the case in this one, and in fact, they were very quick to point out that the women in this film leave in better positions than when they are found.
Yes.
For the most part, their lives improve, you know, throughout the course, rather than, I mean, some of them have to go pretty low to begin, you know, to start, but then they get to rise up. You know, and that was important. But yeah, it's one of those projects where everyone just bought in and went. And there was a massive gap between when because they had to shut down for 100 and something days, long enough that Rooney Mara went off and had a baby. I mean, not, you know, she was already pregnant, but she wasn't showing, and then she had a baby, and then she comes back, and um, there's a scene that takes place in the bathroom apparently, and that's the cutoff point where for her anyway. But you know that this was something that this is based on a novel that has been made into a film in the 40s. It's a good film. It's sort of the same. Not well. It's the same story. It's the two definitely stand on their own merits. The adaptations are different. They both have different nuances and things, but yeah, it was, I mean, I like Guillermo a lot to begin with. And there's a part of me that doesn't know how this movie got made. But then there's a part of me that looks at the cast and goes, well, okay,
How do you not
combine. Well, no, yeah, I mean, well, and you know, and they actually had some guys from Searchlight who said basically after Shape of Water that Guillermo kind of pitched this thinking that they would say no. You know, and they said yes, so he jumped at it and said, okay, well, we're doing it. You know, I think Guillermo has always been kind of a risk taker and a dreamer, and clearly he throws out a lot of different projects that he would like to do, but doesn't necessarily think he's going to actually get to do. And I think that was sort of the situation with this. And when they greenlit him, he ran with it, and then then for, you know, COVID comes along and kind of messes things up a little bit, but so it happened, and it's
Let's talk about the end bit after Stan's
the self-determination.
Yes, yes. So he has that second segment, or that segment ends with the spook show part, and Stan finds himself not where he was, and he finds himself back in the company of carnies, and that segment, as soon as he gets there, you know how it's going to end. and you and I disagree on whether Stan knows how it's going to end.
I think he knows. I think, or at least when he gets in that situation and the conversation starts and he knows exactly where it's going, the familiarity of it, I think.
And so that, again, my question, we disagree on whether or not he still thinks he's gonna beat that situation, or if he's accepting of that situation.
Yeah.
And you say Guillermo knows what he wants, and that's fine. But like I said, I watched it and I was like, it's a great ambiguous line in a vacuum. And Bradley Cooper's delivery is really great, because it could be, that's either the laugh of a defeated man or a laugh of a man who thinks he's got this.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I think either way, it's the laugh of a man who feels like he's arrived, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In that, oh yes, this is the place where I needed to be. In this strange sort of way. I don't know. It's
like I said, it's a great bit. I love it. I get to, and I love it. Yeah, as we could probably argue about it for hours. Everyone could probably argue about it for hours. But I love it. I think it's great, and I think it really does kind of encapsulate Stan.
And I don't know that there's a correct answer.
Yeah,
that's
the really fun part of bits like that in films, is when there's not really a right answer or a wrong answer. So I don't think there is a right answer. I just think there's no wrong answer. Because in that situation, there is no right answer. There's only wrong answers, or not wrong answers. So it ends really well. Stan is where Stan is, and everyone else has moved on. Willem Dafoe is the carny boss that brings him in the beginning. And then sadly, we don't really see him after the middle of the film.
No, he kind of, there are a couple characters that definitely come and go. And he is one of those. And I think part of that is reflective of the lifestyle. Although, can you imagine that final scene being him delivering that monologue too?
Yes, and God help me, that's honestly what I was thinking.
Yeah,
and then it's Tim Blake Nelson, who's great as the carny boss that he encounters. But I just thought, it's very Hollywood to do it that way. But I think watching Willem Dafoe do it would have just been outstanding. To watch him actually walk through that again, knowing that he had walked him through it once before.
Yeah, that would.
And I just think that would have been just freaking thespian brilliance to behold, to watch Willem Dafoe actually do it again. I just think that would have been incredible. I understand why, because it's a very Hollywood thing. But I just, from a purely selfish standpoint, I'd love to have seen that. If there had been like an alternate cut that maybe he threw away, and he thought of it and he came in and reshot it or something. But I would have loved to have seen that. Like I said, Willem Dafoe is just so good. He's so likable and so evil all at the same time.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about him very shortly again. So, no, overall, I liked Nightmare Alley. Like I said, it's not, if you're looking for monster movie Guillermo, this is not it. Unless you're kind of looking for the esoteric monster.
Yeah, there's monsters in this movie.
There's monsters in it. They're just not Shape of Water.
Monsters.
Kaiju. Yeah, that's not who you get. You get people.
They're people monsters.
People monsters. So no, it's really great. I really did enjoy it. It opens this Friday, the 17th, or Thursday. Yeah, Friday the 17th of December. It's opening somewhat sadly against Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But
canon programming.
If you can't see Spider-Man because all of the seats are gone, maybe consider popping to the auditorium next door. and catching this. It won't, I don't think it'll do you wrong if you don't get to see. And if you watch Spider-Man and then need to not superhero movie, catch this one on the same weekend. Make it a double feature.
Yeah,
It's all good.
You could do a double feature.
You can do a double feature that. It's fine. But yeah, definitely check it out if you can. Speaking of Spider-Man, we'll be talking about that one like right after what I'm talking about this one. So watch for that episode too. Any last thoughts on Nightmare Alley that you'd like to share? Any tidbits?
Well, I mean, I like to see Guillermo doing something that's slightly different.
This is slightly different.
That still feels like a Guillermo film. So, I didn't really have a sense of, I liked the cast going in. I liked the idea. I knew the original. I didn't know the book, but I knew the original film. So I was intrigued. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I really liked it, and it's been popping up on a lot of end of year, best ofs lists, which is, I guess I don't know that it's surprising, but it's definitely the sort of film that you could see get overlooked as well.
Yeah.
So it's nice that it's getting a fair amount of attention.
Yeah, it really is. So it's nice. As I said, we're going through kind of an embarrassment of cinematic riches right now.
Well, it's the time of year.
And the fact that now because of the year, it's even worse. Everything's compressed. So don't overlook Nightmare Alley at all. It'll surprise you. So all right, that is it. We are going to wrap up Nightmare Alley, and then we're going to go talk about Spider-Man, probably with a spoiler section. So I'll just give you a hit for that right now. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But till we talk to you again, don't forget to like us, follow us on social media at VS Movie Podcast. You know the drill. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to us there. That works too. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think of Nightmare Alley. And until we talk again, I am Mark. That is Ryan. Bye, Ryan.
See you.
And we'll talk to y'all later.